Hello everybody. Today I'm just going to walk you through a few things on our list just to show you the way that I approach some of these problems and hopefully it'll give you a little bit of guidance of where we are. What I've got is I've got two CentOS minimal images that I've worked with. One I used in the previous intro exercise, and another one that's just brand new. I just deployed it. I logged into it as root to get its IP address, but that's all I did. So I logged in, I ran the IP adder command. What I'm going to do now is all from my server, and that's this name. I always forget to click in the window to get it, make it active. So here's my host name, and it is Ansible server. Okay, I know its IP address. It's right there. I've got that written down next to me, and I'm ready to go with it. So now let's work on the. What I want to do is I want to connect to that remote machine using a host name, not an IP address. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use VI, and I'm going to edit the host file on my server. And hit I to get into insert mode. I'm going to go down to the end here. And now you can see the host file has a pretty standard format. You have the IP address on the left and the host name on the right. So I'm going to use 192.168.201.94 is the IP address of my other host, and I'm going to call it Ansible Client. Okay. Now this didn't change the IP, the host name of the other machine, but it doesn't matter because anytime on this machine, on my server, I say Ansible Client, it's going to change that over into the IP address of my other machine. For example, if I use ping and I say Ansible Client, see how it's done the translation from Ansible Client to the IP address? And I just did that really quickly. So that's the nice thing about this, using the host file, because it's so easy and it's so under your control. You could call that remote host anything you wanted, and it'll respond to it based on the IP address. So now let's see. So I have installed Ansible on here, and in the previous videos you should have seen how I've done that, and so you should know how to do that. I don't have to show you that one, but Ansible's installed. Ansible is ready to roll. Now what I have to do is to edit the /etc/Ansible/hosts. So this is the Ansible hosts file. This is the inventory file that you'll see talked about in Ansible, and it gives you lots of examples of how to work with this default Ansible file. You can see all these lines are commented out, and so I'm going to just hit insert mode, and I'm going to drop it down a little bit, and maybe a little further, and now I'm going to add two lines. I'm going to call it my servers. Oops. I'm going to have a group called servers, and then I'm going to have one server in there, and that is my Ansible server. And you can see my format, or Ansible client, I'm sorry. You can see the format of the lines in here. That's all I need to do for my inventory file. It should be all set up at this point. Okay, so I've added two lines to my Ansible hosts file, one of which is a group, and in this group I've called it servers. I probably should call it clients just to make it a little bit more they would normally be servers, but I'm going to call them clients. And then I only have one host in that clients group, and that's my Ansible client that I named in my Ansible host file, in my Etsy host file. Okay, so do I need to put the IP address in here? No. Could I? Yeah, I could. Now, why would I do that? That would be, and you see some of the example 2 down there. What they've done is they have some of their machines they want to manage, let's call them that, set up by name and then some by IP address. I want to stick with name because I think that's cleaner. And so I'm going to leave it like this. I hit escape. WQ so I can write this. Now I should be able to Ansible -n ping, and I'm going to call it Ansible client. Now see, I haven't logged into it before, so it wants to know, it's trying to use SSH to connect to my Ansible client, but it doesn't know if it should do that or not. So this is the only time we'll see this. I'm typing in yes and unreachable. Let's see. Let's try it again because it had that problem there. So let's try this again, and it's still unreachable. Permission denied. Okay, let's try SSH Ansible client, and we'll see if we can log into it with, oh, it didn't, it wants the password. That's what it is. Okay, so now if I type in host name, I get nothing, localhost, local domain, because I never changed it. Remember, all I did was to make the change in my host file on my server. So this is on my client, it says I don't even have a host name. So let's exit from here, and let's try that Ansible ping again and see if it keeps that up. Still doesn't like that. And you know what's going on is that it's having a tough time in connecting to it because it doesn't have a password. It keeps looking for a password to connect to it. I'm going to pause the video right now so I can figure out how to do that. I've forgotten, in all honesty. All right, I think I got it. I forgot to set up my SSH correctly. So let's do that. Let's do SSH-keygen. Okay, and where do we want it? We want it right there. And we don't want a passphrase. We don't want a passphrase. Here it is. Now we do SSH -copy -ID, and then our host name, which is Ansible client, and we copy it over there. And let's see, right? Okay, and the password is student over there, and now it's all set. Let's try logging in. Ansible client, and we're in. So now Ansible should work. We'll exit, so we go back. Now if we do a host name to make sure where we are, we're on Ansible server. So now let's try our Ansible ping. Once we actually have SSH set up properly. Okay. Woohoo! Success. We got a ping and a pong. So don't forget to set up SSH. Sorry, guys. And that's how we did it. So now we're configured to interact with that alternate server as through Ansible. We can do all of our ad hoc commands using that remote server. Let me go find a couple of ad hoc commands just to make it easier. Hold on one second. Okay, so got a few good ones ready for you. Nothing up my sleeves, ready to go. So one of the neat things about Ansible is that you can do these ad hoc commands, and these ad hoc commands are really useful. For instance, if you wanted to find out the IP address of that remote host. So I'm using Ansible Client as the name, and I can use the IP adder command to ask the remote host what its IP address is. Now this is the output of the IP adder command if I ran it on my Ansible client. So you can see it says, well, let's see. So anyhow, there's the IP address. Now, just as other interesting things, one of the things we didn't do was to change the host name of that remote machine. Well, there it is. The current host name of the remote machine, the Ansible client, is localhost.localdomain. Okay, so we don't want it to be that. Maybe we want it to be. Whoop, you can see where I changed it back. Sorry about that. Okay, we want to change that remote host name to Ansible client. And to do that, we want to use hostname CTL, but we want to run it on that remote machine. Well, we can do all this stuff using ad hoc Ansible commands from our local machine, in this case, our Ansible server. So now, if we ran that command on that remote machine, let's check its new host name, and bada bing, bada boom, it is now Ansible client. So if we were to SSH to the Ansible client, we're logged in there now, and if we wanted to check its host name, it's now Ansible client. And now we didn't run any commands from that remote machine. I logged into it once just to get its IP address. I probably didn't even need to do that, but I did. And so now we can do all our administration of that remote machine using SSH and Ansible and the ad hoc commands. Okay, that's all I really wanted to show you with this short little video, and I hope that helps you to get a feel for some of the things that you can do with Ansible, as well as the initial configuration of these guys. So remember, you need to change the etc host file on your Ansible server, whichever machine you do that with. You need to change the etc host file. That allows you to to run commands against a remote machine using its host name, the host name that you give it, rather than its IP address. Then you need to edit the etc Ansible hosts file to create an inventory file that Ansible will then use to connect to that remote machine, and then you have to set up your SSH keys. Don't forget your SSH keys, and that will allow you to run your Ansible ping. And it's not okay. Hold on a second, so we can run our ping. Let's exit from here because we're on that remote machine. Now we're going back to let's go to this one. So we can use the ping module. That's what -m means. Ping, and then Ansible client. And what this command is really useful for is just to show. I did it wrong. Ansible. Oh, that's why I got an extra Ansible client here. And let's get rid of this one. Okay, what this command is really useful for is to just give you basic connectivity. Can Ansible connect to that remote machine so that later on, you can run all your regular commands on it. But first off, you want to test your connectivity. That's what this command does, and it's a big step in the right direction. So I hope this helps. Take care, everybody. See you later.